Hi, I'm Chris Prescott. I'm a partner and immigration attorney, and today I'm talking about the SEVIS terminations. So these have started happening in about the last 7 to 10 days. I've already spoken with several clients. The rest of my week is basically full of consultations. This is happening, I imagine, to thousands of international students. One of the common themes is people that have had arrests, DWIs, DUIs, and there's even reports of SEVIS being terminated where somebody has an unpaid parking ticket, a speeding ticket. Somebody contacted our office, I think, that doesn't have an arrest or any kind of infraction, and their SEVIS has been terminated. The first thing to understand is that these are being done by ICE, so Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They don't have the legal authority to do this. If there was a genuine ground to deport someone, they would put somebody into removal proceedings. They don't care that there's no legal authority, right? Let's say they terminate the SEVIS of 10,000 students. 3,000 of those students freak out and think, okay, I don't have any status, I'm going to leave the US because I'm subject to deportation. If a judge eventually rules against ICE and says, hey, look, you can't do that, you need to reinstate the SEVIS, if 3,000 of those students have left, they've already achieved the goal. The administration is trying to reduce immigration. So the first thing to understand is they don't have that legal authority to do it, but they don't care. The second thing is there are options, and those options are going to depend on your individual circumstances. So one option may be to request a data correction from the DSO. I think it's unlikely because, the DSOs, they're saying, look, this is new, we've never seen this before, we really don't know what to do. They're telling people to contact an immigration attorney. I had a client contact a DSO, and this was a client that had been charged with a DWI, but the case had been dismissed. So in that case, there was no reason for the SEVIS to be terminated, but when the SEVIS is terminated, you're not given an opportunity to basically make your case. It's terminated, you're left without status. DSO said that, look, they're not even entertaining data correction. So their recommendation to the client was to file for reinstatement. So reinstatement to F1. You can do that as long as you can show that it's due to circumstances outside of your control. The problem is, if you finish studying and you're on OPT or STEM OPT, you're not going to be eligible for reinstatement. So for reinstatement, you have to be enrolled in school. So you could enroll in a new program, but for most people that are on OPT, STEM OPT, they don't want to give that up and enroll in a new program. So that may not really be an option. One option, which I think could work, and again, this is brand new, would be applying for a change of status to B1, B2. The challenge there is when you apply for a change of status, you have to be in a valid status at the time of filing. Well, if the SEVIS has been terminated, you're not in a valid status. However, you can ask USCIS to excuse a late filing. So for example, in the case that I gave, where the person's DWI was dismissed, they can say, well, look, my SEVIS shouldn't have been terminated. It was terminated without proper notice. Therefore, please excuse the late filing. In that case, I think USCIS would approve them for a change of status to B1, B2. Somebody that maybe has a DWI, I spoke to a client yesterday and they said one of their students is essentially on their second DWI. That type of case, I imagine that USCIS is not going to approve for a change of status. But the last option really, and this is what a lot of people are pursuing, is to file a federal lawsuit against the government seeking a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order. So this would be saying, look, you guys can't do this, you need to reinstate my SEVIS. The problem with this is it's expensive to file a federal lawsuit. So me personally, I'm not filing lawsuits. I'm leaving that to more experienced litigators. If you're interested in filing a lawsuit, I can connect you with the right people. So I've already connected with several attorneys that are filing these TROs, but it's going to cost anywhere from probably $7,000 to $10,000 to file this lawsuit. If you get involved and file a lawsuit and it's successful, then your SEVIS should be reinstated. Certainly that's the hope. The other option is to sit back and let other people file a lawsuit and hope that there is a nationwide injunction against ICE, which says, look, you guys can't terminate SEVIS. If you want to deport people, you need to do it through the proper channels. In other words, initiate removal proceedings. And if there is that nationwide injunction, then again, the hope is that your SEVIS should be reinstated. The last thing I want to say is this is just affecting F1 students. This is something that could also affect people on H1B. So previously, if somebody had, for example, a DWI, the Department of State would revoke the visa. and there's legal authority for them to do that. There isn't the legal authority for them to terminate the SEVIS. However, the difference is, for example, if somebody's on H-1B and they have a DWI and their visa gets revoked, if USCIS wants to revoke that H-1B, they would have to issue a notice of intent to revoke. So it's not like the F1 where they can just terminate it. They would have to give you a notice, and then you would have the opportunity to respond. So for example, if you were arrested and the charges were dismissed, you could respond to USCIS and say, well, actually, you can't revoke my H-1B. The charges were dismissed. There's no reasonable grounds upon which to revoke it. And I've had cases like that before, and then USCIS essentially dismisses that. They're not going to revoke the H-1B. But my feeling is, we're seeing an attack on F1. It's probably going to carry over to H-1B and other types of visas. So, if you've had a SEVIS termination, if you're on a H-1B, if you're concerned, you can reach out to me. My name's Chris Prescott. I'm an immigration attorney and partner at Patel Law Group. We're based in Irving, Texas. Our office number is 972-650-6848, or you can email me at cprescott@patellegal.com.